Part 3 of Shelley's Triumph of Life. I rose, and for a space the scene of woods and waters seemed to keep, though it was now broad day, a gentle trace of light diviner than the common sun sheds on the common earth, and all the place was filled with magic sounds woven into one oblivious melody, confusing sense amid the gliding waves and shadows done. And as I looked, the bright omnipresence of morning through the orient cavern flowed, and the sun's image radiantly intense burned on the waters of the well that glowed like gold, and threaded all the forest's maze with winding paths of emerald fire. There stood amid the sun, as he amid the blaze of his own glory, on the vibrating floor of the fountain, paved with flashing rays, a shape all light, which with one hands did fling dew on the earth, as if she were the dawn, and the invisible rain did ever sing a silver music on the mossy lawn. And still before me on the dusky grass, Iris her many-colored scarf had drawn, and in her right hand she bore a crystal glass, mantling with brightness beneath. The fierce splendor fell from her as she moved under the mass of the deep cavern, and with palms so tender, their tread broke not the mirror of its billow, glided along the river, and did bend her head under the dark boughs till like a willow her fair hair swept the bosom of the stream that whispered with delight to be its pillow, as one enamored its upborne and dreamed over lily-paven lakes mid silver mist, to wondrous music so this shape might seem, partly to tread the waves with feet which kissed the dancing foam, partly to glide along the air which roughened to moist amethyst, or the faint morning beams that fell among the trees, or the soft shadows of the trees, and her feet ever to the ceaseless song of leaves and winds and waves, and birds and bees and falling drops moved in a measure new, yet sweet as on summer evening breeze. Up from the lake a shape of golden dew, between two rocks athwart the rising moon, dances in the wind, there where never eagle flew, and still her feet no less than the sweet tune to which they moved seemed as they moved to blot thoughts of him who gazed on them, and soon all that was seemed as if it had been not, and all the gazer's mind was strewn beneath her feet like embers, and she, thought by thought, trampled its sparks into the dust of death, as day upon the threshold of the east treads out the lamps of light, until the breath of darkness reillumine even the least of heaven's living eyes. Like day she came, making the night a dream, and ere she ceased to move as one between desire and shame, suspended I said, as if as it doth seem thou comest from the realm without a name, into this valley of perpetual dreams, show whence I came, and where I am, and why. Pass not away upon the passing stream. Arise and quench thy thirst, was her reply, and as a shed lily stricken by the wind of dewy morning's vital alchemy, I rose, and bending at her sweet command, touched with faint lips the cup she raised, and suddenly my brain became as sand, where the first wave had more than half erased the track of deer on desert Labrador, whilst the wolf from whence they fled amazed leaves his stamp visibly on the shore, until the second burst so on my sight, burst a new vision never seen before, and the fair shape waned in the coming light, as veil by veil the silent splendor drops, from Lucifer amid the chrysolite of sunrise ere it tints the mountain tops, and as the presence of that fairest planet, although unseen, is felt by one who hopes that his day's path may end as he began it, in that star's smile, whose light is like the scent of a jonquil when evening breezes fan it, or the soft note in which his dear lament the brusking shepherd breathes, or the caress that turned his weary slumber to content. So knew I in that light's severe excess the presence of that shape which on the stream moved as I moved along the wilderness, more dimly than a day appearing dream, the ghost of a forgotten form of sleep, the light of heaven whose half extinguished beam, through the sick day in which we wake to weep, glimmers forever sought, forever lost, so did that shape its obscure tenor keep beside my path as silent as a ghost. But the new vision and the cold bright car, with solemn speed and stunning music crossed the forest as if from some dread war, triumphantly returning, the loud million fiercely extolled the fortune of her star. The moving arch of victory and the vermilion and green and azure plumes of Iris had built high over the wing-winged pavilion, and underneath ethereal glory clad the wilderness, and far before her flew the tempest of the splendor which forbade shadow to fall from leaf and stone. The crew seemed in that light like atomies to dance within a sunbeam. Some upon the new embroidery flowers that bidding hands the grassy verdure of the desert played, forgetful of the chariot's swift advance. Others stood gazing, till within the shade of the great mountain its light left them dim. Others outspeeded it, and others made circles round it, like the clouds that swim round the high moon in a bright sea of air, and more did follow with exulting hymn. The chariot and the captives fettered there, but all like bubbles on an eddying flood, fell into the same track at last, and were borne upward. I, among the multitude, was swept. Me, the sweetest flowers delayed not long. Me, not the shadow nor the solitude. Me, not the failing streams left in song. Me, not the phantom of an early form which moved upon its motion, but among the thickest billows that of that living storm I plunged, and bared my bosom to the clime of that cold night, whose airs too soon deformed them before the chariot had begun to climb the opposing steep of that mysterious dell. Behold a wonder worthy of the rhyme of him who from the lowest depths of hell, through every paradise, and through all glory, love led serene, and who returned to tell the words of hate and awe, the wondrous story of all things are transferred except love, for death is as is a sea which makes wrath hoary. The world can hear not the sweet notes that move the sphere whose light is melody to lovers. A wonder worthy of his rhyme, the grove grew dense with shadows to its inmost covers. The earth was gray with phantoms, and the air was peopled with dim forms, as when there hovers a flock of vampire bats before the glare of the tropic sun, bringing ere evening strange night upon some Indian isle. Thus were phantoms diffused round, and some did fling shadows of shadows, yet unlike themselves, behind them some like eaglets on the wing, and were lost in the white day. Others like elves danced in a thousand unimagined shapes upon the sunny streams and grassy shelves, and others sate chattering like restless apes on vulgar hymns. Some made a cradle of their ermine capes, of kingly mantles, some across the tiara of pontines sate like vultures, others played under the crown which girt with empire the babies for an idiot's brow, and made their nest in it. The old anatomies sat the hatching their bare broods under the shade of the demon wings, and laughed from their dead eyes to reassume delegated power, arrayed in which those worms did monarchize. Who made this earth their charnel? None others more humble like falcons sat upon the fists of common men, and round their heads did soar, or like small gnats and flies, as thick as mist, on evening marshes thronged it about the brow of lawyers, statesmen, priests, and theorists, and others like discolored flakes of snow, on fairest bosoms and the sunniest hair, fell, and were melted by the youthful glow, which they extinguished, and like tears they were availed to those from whom faint lids they rained in drops of sorrow. I became aware of whence those forms proceeded, and thus stained the track in which we moved after a brief space. From every form the beauty slowly waned, and from every firmest limb and fairest face the strength and freshness fell like dust, and left the action and the shape without the grace of life. The marble brow of youth was cleft with care, and in those eyes where once hope shone, desire like a lioness bereft of her last cub glared ere it died. Each one of that great crowd sent forth incessantly these shadows numerous as the dead leaves blown in autumn evening from a poplar tree. Each like himself and like each other were at first, but some distorted seemed to be obscure clouds moulded by the casual air, and of this stuff the car's creative ray not all the busy phantoms that were there, as the sun shapes the clouds thus on the way. Mask after mask fell from the countenance and form of all, and long before the day was old the joy which walked like heaven's glance. The sleepers in the oblivious valley died, and some grew weary of the ghastly dance, and fell as I had fallen by the wayside. Those soonest from whose forms no shadows passed, and length of strength and beauty did abide. Then what is life? I cried. The end.